These are the most terrifying cults to ever exist, organizations that destroyed thousands of lives, brainwashed entire communities, and left behind body counts that are still climbing to this day. What makes these groups so disturbing isn't just the death tolls, it's how normal everything looked from the outside, right up until the moment it wasn't. If you liked this video, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Now let's get into it. Number 5. Heaven's Gate. In 1974, Marshall Applewhite and Bonnie Nettles founded what became one of the strangest and most unsettling cults in American history. They called themselves Do and Tie, and they convinced their followers that Earth was about to be wiped clean, recycled like a used hard drive. The only way to survive was to leave their physical bodies behind and ascend to a spacecraft, trailing the comet Hale-Bopp. Here's where it gets bizarre. This wasn't some group living off the grid in the middle of nowhere. Heaven's Gate members ran a professional web design company called Higher Source. They built websites for paying clients in the mid-90s. They were functioning members of society who happened to believe that their bodies were just containers, vehicles they needed to abandon. 8 men in the group, including Applewhite himself, voluntarily underwent castration as part of their commitment to an ascetic lifestyle. They rejected everything physical, everything human. Then, on March 22nd and 23rd, 1997, 39 members of Heaven's Gate took their own lives in a rented mansion in Rancho Santa Fe, California. When authorities discovered them on March 26th, every single body was lying on a bed or cot, dressed in identical black clothing with colorful shoulder patches reading Heaven's Gate Away Team. They were all wearing brand new white Nike sneakers. Each one had a $5 bill and rolls of quarters stuffed in their pockets. A travel bag was placed neatly beside every body, as if they were catching a flight somewhere. They genuinely believed they were boarding a spaceship. Number 4. Aum Shinrikyo. Most cults destroy their own members. Aum Shinrikyo tried to destroy everyone else. Founded in 1984 by Shoko Asahara, whose birth name was Chizuo Matsumoto, this Japanese doomsday cult attracted something you wouldn't expect: elite university students and graduates. These were brilliant young people, scientists and engineers, who became convinced that the apocalypse was near and that Asahara was the only one who could guide them through it. With their expertise, the cult invested an estimated $30 million into developing chemical and biological weapons. Let that sink in. A religious cult built a weapons program with a budget that rivaled some small nations. On March 20th, 1995, they used it. In 5 coordinated attacks during the morning rush hour, cult members released sarin nerve gas on the Tokyo subway system. 14 people died. 50 were severely injured. Nearly 1,000 suffered temporary vision problems. Over 5,500 people were affected in total. Tokyo, one of the safest cities on the planet, was brought to its knees by a group of people who thought the end of the world was a good thing. It took decades, but justice eventually caught up. In July 2018, 13 members of the cult, including Asahara himself, were executed for their crimes. Number 3. The Manson family. Charles Manson didn't kill anyone himself, at least not during the murders that made him infamous. But that's exactly what makes the Manson family so terrifying. He didn't have to. Manson founded his group in mid-1967, gathering a collection of mostly young, disillusioned people in the counterculture movement of late 60s California. He was magnetic and manipulative, and he convinced his followers of a delusional race war he called Helter Skelter, borrowed from a Beatles song. On the night of August 8th into August 9th, 1969, members of the Manson family broke into a home on Cielo Drive in Los Angeles. Inside was actress Sharon Tate, who was 8.5 months pregnant, along with Jay Sebring, Abigail Folger, Wojciech Frykowski, and Stephen Parent. All 5 were murdered. The next night, August 10th, 2 more people were killed, Leno and Rosemary LaBianca. The cultural shockwave was enormous. Writer Joan Didion later said, "Many people I know in Los Angeles believe that the 60s ended abruptly on August 9, 1969. She wasn't exaggerating. The Manson murders shattered the peace and love fantasy of an entire generation. Here was proof that charisma, unchecked and unquestioned, could turn ordinary people into killers. Number 2, NXIVM. If you think dangerous cults are a thing of the past, NXIVM would like a word. Keith Raniere co-founded NXIVM with Nancy Salzman in 1998, marketing it as a self-improvement organization, executive success programs, personal development seminars. It attracted 700 members at its peak, including celebrities and wealthy elites. Allison Mack from Smallville, Claire Bronfman, an heiress to the Seagram liquor fortune. People with resources and education who still got pulled in. Beneath the surface, NXIVM operated a secret intergroup called DOS, which functioned as a sex trafficking ring. Female recruits were forced to provide collateral, often sexually explicit photographs of themselves, or damaging information about their families. Then, at Raniere's direction, women were branded with his initials using a cauterizing pen. No anesthesia. Former member India Oxenberg later said she may have to spend the rest of her life with Keith Raniere's initials seared into her skin. When the New York Times exposed the organization in 2018, Raniere fled to Mexico. He was arrested at a villa outside Puerto Vallarta. A jury convicted him on all charges, including racketeering and sex trafficking. The prosecutor called him a massive manipulator, a con man, and the crime boss of a cult-like organization. On October 27, 2020, he was sentenced to 120 years in prison and a $1.75 million fine. The court received more than 100 victim impact statements. In 2025, the federal government sold NXIVM's former campus for $700,000. The buildings are empty now, but the scars aren't. Number 1, People's Temple and Jonestown. No list like this can end anywhere else. Jim Jones started the People's Temple in Indianapolis in 1955. To raise money for his church, he tried various side hustles, including, believe it or not, selling live monkeys door to door. But Jones was charismatic in a way that few people in history have been, and he built a following that eventually numbered in the thousands. He was also a fraud. Jones was a phony faith healer whose income largely came from mail-order donations. Elderly members handed over their Social Security checks. Working adults gave 25% of their wages. Government investigators later found at least $10 million hidden in Swiss bank accounts. By 1977, Jones had relocated his entire community to a compound in the jungle of Guyana, South America. There, cut off from the outside world, things deteriorated rapidly. Jones, now addicted to drugs and in declining mental health, became paranoid that the U.S. government was out to destroy him. He forced members to participate in mock suicide drills in the middle of the night, rehearsals for what was coming. In November 1978, Congressman Leo Ryan flew to Guyana to investigate. On November 18th, as Ryan and his delegation attempted to leave from the Port Kaituma airstrip, gunmen from the temple opened fire. Ryan, NBC correspondent Don Harris, NBC cameraman Bob Brown, San Francisco Examiner photographer Greg Robinson, and temple defector Patty Parks were all killed. That same day, back at the compound, Jim Jones ordered the final act. 918 people died. Cyanide was mixed into grape-flavored drink and distributed. A third of the victims were children. 70 or more people were forcibly injected with poison. Armed guards stood ready to shoot anyone who tried to run. It wasn't a mass suicide. It was a massacre. When polled in February 1979, 98% of Americans said they had heard of Jonestown. George Gallup himself stated that few events in the entire history of the Gallup poll had been known to such a high percentage of the American public. Here's what's worth remembering. Nearly 1 in 200 Americans are currently involved in high-control groups right now. 93% of former cult members experience anxiety attacks after leaving. 23% attempt suicide. These aren't relics of the past. As the ongoing trial in Kenya reminds us, where over 440 bodies have been unearthed from the Shakahola forest, cults are still operating, still killing, still hiding in plain sight. That might be the most terrifying part of all.